All right. All right. It looks like we're live. Jay, are we live?
We are live.
All right. My name's Adrian Park, and with me today, Contractor AI Group founder Jay Carter. And well, Jay, I want to take us on a trip down memory lane. Can I do that?
Okay. Sure.
I'd like to share my screen if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know when I can do that.
There you go.
So we're gonna go back in time. All right. So I'm 47 years old. So 1992, I was in high school. I think I got you by a few years
Mm-hmm.
there. You're a younger pup. So, the among other things, the late 80s and the early 90s, a lot of really interesting things happened. One of those was there was this thing in, like, just generally speaking, whether it was food or like electronics, it was kind of like called the purity trend, where, like Clearly Canadian, remember that was like a
Mm-hmm.
big deal in the 90s. Zima, like, have a Zima. And then the Game Boys, they did this thing where, like, they were gray when they were first released, but then they did this like housing where you could see like the circuit board and stuff like that. So it's called the purity trend. So I wanted to ask, like, was Crystal Pepsi as bad as we remember? I know what my answer is, but believe it or not, there's actually some people out there that would disagree with me, that Crystal Pepsi is not as bad. I remember the first time I tasted this, and I thought, what were they thinking? So, and remember New Coke. So, okay, so I'm going to pause here. So in 1985, Coke launched New Coke. And for all of us Americans and around the world, Canadians, Mexicans, Western Europeans that love, I'm not trying to exclude people, just I'm going to stop there, that love Coke, everybody thought, like, oh man, Coke's so good. What's New Coke going to be like? Well, New Coke was like hot garbage. Biggest product disaster in history. Like, well, okay, I'm saying the biggest. It's in the top 3 or top 5 biggest product disaster, certainly at scale, right? New Coke, though, was a response to the Pepsi challenge. Remember the Pepsi challenge? And now I know
Mm-hmm.
you. This is I'm getting you, like, you're really young kid. I mean, I was like
I
sub
remember
10
the
years
Pepsi
old.
challenge very well.
Okay,
When they gave away
so
a jet, but you couldn't get the
yeah,
jet.
that's right. The Pepsi
Yeah.
challenge, the chat. Yes. So the Pepsi challenge was like this long-standing thing that started in the 80s. And so there were these commercials in the 80s, like from like the early, like mid 80s through like into the 90s. And people would have like they would taste one cola and the other cola, and they were genuinely picking. This wasn't put on. They were actually picking Pepsi over Coke. And it was a shocker to the world because Coke was the juggernaut, right? So sorry, my mic's falling apart. So New Coke was so Coke sees this, and of course they're actually losing now to Pepsi, not losing, but Pepsi's picking up steam and they're selling more product. So Coke comes up with New Coke. It was a response to the Pepsi challenge. All right. So over the course of, I want to say 7 years, New Coke essentially in today's dollars cost $6 billion. So that was 4% of the company's value from 1985 to 1992. Okay. Which is a substantial amount of money. I mean, imagine if your company lost 4% of its value overnight, right? That's a big loss. So again, New Coke was actually, and I forgot this, it was actually on the shelves from 85 to 92. So literally after New Coke had bombed and been the biggest disaster of, certainly for Coke's history, after that happened, Pepsi launches Crystal Pepsi on the heels of that. Okay. and I'm going somewhere, so just stay with me. So Crystal Pepsi launches in April of 1992. Literally, like Crystal Pepsi was launched and New Coke was shut down, like literally within a 6-month period. Okay, which is a little weird if you ask me. Pepsi spent in 1992 $40 million. Today, $223 million, which was a lot of money. Was and is a lot of money. Oh, and they remember the Van Halen. The Van Halen did a commercial for the Super Bowl that year in 1992. So on the heels of that, in the same month that Crystal Pepsi was launched in April of 92, Tab Clear from Coke is launched. Now, there's a little bit of a conspiracy here, and you and I were talking about it just a minute before we went live. So the conspiracy theory is that Tab Clear was launched. Essentially, it was born to die. It was launched to show consumers how terrible clear colas were, and just basically to kill Crystal Pepsi. Although, in my opinion, they really didn't need that. It was sort of like, I mean, they didn't need to launch Tab Clear to kill Crystal Pepsi. It died all on its own. But there's a conspiracy out there, nonetheless, that says that that's why Coke launched it. And I think one of the guy that came up with Crystal or Tab Clear, there's some, he had said that later on. Who knows if he was covering his rear end or whatever. Okay, so in 1994, both Crystal Pepsi and Tab Clear are yanked, and they are not gone forever. Tab Clear came back in 2017, and I think Crystal Pepsi came back last year. The last couple of years is like on 30-year anniversary of their failure. Okay, so how do two companies have so many? That's a long run of very, very large failures and not knowing. And think about this, Jay. Like, we're talking about your roofing business, the mason restoration business that I ran, and like some of the things we did and didn't do, and the failures and things like that. But I mean, the information you and I have access to, I mean, is, while it's meaningful and substantial, certainly nothing like what a multi-billion-dollar company has access to, right? So you have to ask yourself, how do two companies with so many people working on this, so much information, so many people analyzing the information, how do they have these spectacular failures? And here's my theory. So I think it was because they were out to win the war versus understand what our customer really wants, right? So, had they, I'll just finish my thought here. Had they, because it was, New Coke was a response to the Pepsi challenge. And by the way, later studies showed that people preferred Pepsi more when they had a sip versus drinking the whole can. So again, a little bit more. That's an important data point, right? That if Coke had known that, or had maybe done some more research of their own, they would have found they maybe wouldn't have launched New Coke. Maybe we never have New Coke, Crystal Pepsi, and all of these fantastic failures. Over the course of almost 9 years. So I think that's an interesting way to to segue into talking about, as contractors, there's information that we can use all around us, right? But so many times we're not using it. And I know one of your favorite things to say is, in God I trust, but show me your data.
Right. Everyone else bring data.
That's right. Everyone else bring your data. So, let's maybe we can kind of get into that a little bit. And again, I almost hesitate to bring this up because, I'm going back to 6 months ago or 8 months ago, and I'm out there and I've got my steel toes on and I'm running around a job site, and I got to write this change order and that change order, and I've got these 4 payment apps are due, and I'm getting hounded by, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, and then it's like, how do I fit in, you know, how do I fit in looking at, you know, actually looking at my data or the information that's
Y-
available to me so I can make more informed decisions about my business.
Absolutely. So let's address first the Coca-Cola Pepsi thing, because I
Okay,
see
we're
it
gonna
in
go back to
slightly
that. All
different,
right.
slightly different way.
Okay.
So and this applies to marketing. Okay. You have to understand that in the world we're in, those organizations actually still take big risks and big chances with data. Okay. And they practice an 80-20
Okay.
rule. The reason they can afford to take, and what seems to us as being big, huge losses, is they're not a shot in the dark. Because here's the reality. Nobody there isn't a marketer on the planet that knows precisely what to do to move an audience. Okay. They have a good idea and they know their past experience, but nobody, and again, you guys take this, you know, listen to what I'm saying with this. It's important when you're buying any sort of marketing services. Nobody can actually say without a doubt 100% you're going to get this. And there's a reason,
Right.
is that consumer behavior follows a pattern that is, it can change on a dime. All right. So in marketing, what you try to do is actually you try to scale on failure. Everything's a failure
Okay.
until something works. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So like when I'm running ads, for example, you know, we're running a set of 100 ads at a time. We
Okay.
know there's going to be huge failures in there. Ones that, and again,
Right.
this is where what I mean about using your data to drive your decisions, and really understanding that 80-20 rule is that even with good data, even with good understanding, there's still like, you could still like, for whatever reason that day, an ad can pop up. And we had this experience a couple of weeks ago where it kills it one day and then it just dies.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Right.
It's because, again, there is no clear path. And I'll be the first to tell you, like I've been in marketing my business and now, you know, deeply into marketing for a long time. It is a failure driven process. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
would you rather take micro failures or would you rather take huge
Right.
failures?
Right.
Or would you rather stay stuck or would you rather use data to get unstuck? Okay, so this is the decisions we've got to make. I much rather make smaller failures, okay, calculated failures in trying something, because had that, you know, had maybe it been at a slightly different time, or maybe the marketing campaign had been adjusted. There's so many variables of
Right.
why that product could have failed. And at the end
Right.
of the day, for Coke and for Pepsi, they're multi-billion dollar, like 250 million is nothing. That's a
Right.
test. They
Right.
tested the market, it didn't work. Now they can collect that off the board. But the data that they use from that probably led to success, because there's lessons learned in it. And the better you get at understanding those data points, and this applies, and I'm going to bring it down to earth, this applies so much to everything that I've done in my business, in my life. All right. Is understanding first, isolate the thing you're trying to improve. Okay.
Right.
Make it simple, make it easy to understand. Okay. And I'm going to
Okay.
give you a really good example of this in just a minute, but a lot of us get overwhelmed with that. We've got to have all this data, all these things in order to make a decision. And it's
Right.
analysis by paralysis, right? So, and it doesn't serve you, right? And again, when we get into looking at data and analyzing it, having the data is one thing. All of us have data. All of us have access to it. Okay.
Right.
Every one of us on this call, or anyone listening to this, I mean, there is data everywhere available for you to analyze.
Right.
What we fail at doing is understanding the practical purpose for analyzing, right?
Right.
So let me give you a very, very clean, easy to understand example.
Okay.
If you're a contractor out there that's running around day in, day out, is stressed, is like they can't manage their time, they're just all over the place, you know, like most, disorganized, and is really struggling to trying to see, you know, kind of how they make money at this business, is really like
Right.
lost. Here's my challenge for you. Analyze your time.
Okay.
Take yourself, you know, make sure that you pick three or four times in the day where you set your watch up, right? It dings, and you just write down all the things you've done in the last 4 hours. Write them all
Okay.
down. Do it
All right.
right. You do that for 1 week. All right. Then go back and categorize them. All right. We have a guide for this. All right. Analyze
Okay.
what you're spending your time on, and you're going to see some huge insights. I do this for myself all the time because I start to see why I'm running around. All right. It's very
Right.
clear. How
Yeah.
much time did I spend on my phone? How much time in, I mean, there's also apps out there that you can download and use for this, but this is a really good start for understanding your time. And don't you dare try and scale a business or grow a business or, add more and more and more until you can control your time. If you can't control your time, if you don't have control on that and you're able to make decisions based on the things, you're not using calendars and stuff like that, good luck. I mean, that was the first thing I had to master before I ever tried to, well, I tried and failed miserably, by the way. So again, not having control of my time led to the chaos, led to the confusion, the missed appointments, again, being generally stressed, working longer hours than I needed to. So, if we're going to start anywhere, all of us, and I don't care if you're a pro, all right, I do this still to this day, all right, is I take and I study my time for a week or 2 weeks. Okay. I make sure that I'm putting my time towards the things that are going to get me to where I want to be. All right.
Yeah.
And I know that my team, again, sees these things. They understand, right? If I'm not in control of my time, what am I in control of? Right. That's your first responsibility. So
Right.
again, like I said, very easy thing to do. Set your watch up, get an app, like no excuse here. Like any one of you guys on this call could actually do this immediately. And you're going to get so much benefit, so much insight. Um, our guide is available. It's the exact guide that I use, by the way. So I use the same categories. I have an
Like
app
it's
that
your
just tracks
personal
my time.
playbook, essentially,
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I know that if I'm struggling with something, all right, if I'm struggling, I've got a different, I'm launching a new offer, for example. What's the first thing that I have to get control of in order to do that? What do you think the first thing?
Well, yeah, you
Got to
your
have the
time
time.
is, yeah,
I got
yeah.
to know how much time it's going to take for me to actually do something that's new or creative, right? So if I don't start from a place of controlling myself first, how the hell am I supposed to control the outcome of that thing, right? So again, this is where we start to, and where I started to really understand the power of data and like being able to stand back. We can't see the forest through the trees,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times with contractors, it's right in front of you. Like I say all the time to most people, most of my job is looking at your watch and telling you what time it is,
Right.
right? And how do we get to these places is again, not focusing on the things that matter, right? If your time is spent, outside that 80-20 rule where you're spending the majority of your time doing low level tasks, okay, that's going to be very clear to you, very, very clear after a week, after 2 weeks, and then you
Right.
make slight adjustments, small changes that get you back control in your time, right? And that is a perfect example of taking data and analyzing it and then using it to make a decision, right? So, and I challenge everyone, because there's no excuses to this one. You don't need tech. You need nothing. You need a pad of paper if you want to go, and a stopwatch, basically.
Well, I want to say this, Jay. I think, so you are, I don't know if you would say this yourself. I mean, I don't know if you would say this about yourself. But you are the, like, one of the, to me, quintessential examples of this, because we were talking, I don't know, it was like a month and a half ago, and you were having a busier week because there was a big storm,
Mhm.
and um, and so you were telling me how your roofing company ran different ads, and you just like got crushed with new jobs, new projects
Yep.
because of this big storm. And so let me ask you, so if you were, and so again, by the way, so for anybody who doesn't know, so we're here on this call, and so what we're talking about today, contractor AI is like where Jay spends, yeah, I don't know, probably not
90%. Yeah.
94. I was going to say 184% of his time. You know, he has a professional team that manages his roofing company in Greater Toronto. And he now runs this business, which he started after growing another business in a similar space. So, you know, so for those of you who don't know Jay's CV or his resume, while we're doing this right now, his employees are running his roofing company. So for context, okay, so pivoting back to your roofing company has this great opportunity. So, you know, maybe you can tell us, including me, by the
Mhm.
way, if you did not have this command over your time, how would you have fared? Because you booked a ton of work, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. Like it was like a bonanza for you, and
Yeah.
how data impacted that whole thing. So it
Yeah.
was
So for,
data and time for you.
right. So I'll tell you exactly kind of starting at the beginning of where I seen that. So I didn't know that that storm had hit. The reason I found out is because of the Google searches. So I oversee our media buying and seen
Right.
a uptick in hail damage. So I'm really
Interesting.
starting getting
So
curious.
the
So
data is what
the
told you.
data is what told me where the
Holy
storm was.
crap.
Right. So again,
Wow.
that's, you know, that's something that, you know, that's sort of a secret that I'm sure most contractors don't share, is that you can monitor what words are being searched
Yeah.
in your group, right? So Google allows you to see that, or what your competitors are buying ads for and all that. So I
Yeah.
watched that data because it's easy for me to visualize and understand. It was
Okay.
clear, you know, as the number of searches for hail damage were coming up in a certain area, I knew that they had a severe storm that gone through. Went and looked at my keywords. Sure enough, there was indicators there that said, "Hey, you know what? We've got some significant damage." So I got the team on the ground. You know, we dispatched all of the we changed our ads that day. We, you know, really started to target the area, got people out, and we capitalized.
Yeah.
And that's a typical thing though. That, you know, we do that quite often. And then in terms of my time on that, you know, the first thing I do, and again, I'm going to tell you the exact steps I took. So I realized very early on that based on my early data I was bringing back. So we
Yeah.
sent out a scout, hey, go check this area, bang a few doors, see if there's damage on these roofs. Sure enough,
Right.
comes back, he's like, every roof. Perfect.
Right.
So then I have to look at my calendar and see what I can afford to remove while I work
Right.
on this project. And it was about a week. What was it going to require of me? All right, as an audit, because there's certain things that I do that, you know, I don't have. I still do specific things, especially with marketing in my business.
Right.
Actually, that's all I really do. So I had to reverse engineer and pull things out of my schedule, okay, that would allow me to take on that project. It also
Right.
allowed me to communicate to my team and say, hey,
Right.
I need, you know, some coverage on, you know, this event or this event, because I'm going to be focusing on that. And then I gave myself a stop loss. Okay. And I don't think a lot of people practice this. Again, it's after you get control of your time, you start to put stop losses on things. So new opportunity, how much time am I willing to put into this?
A stop
All
loss
right.
on your time.
On my time, but and the
Ah.
money I was going to spend on everything.
Okay.
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 So time, I calculate myself at an hourly rate. All right.
Okay.
And I put a stop loss to the opportunity. So I gave myself, and this is, again, this is how you get, you know, something that would take most people a month done in 3 days, because
Right.
it's the data that I know. I've got a clock ticking in front of me. You only have 5 hours or 6 hours, and
Right.
your efficiency goes through the roof, right?
Right.
Your thinking of how to solve the problem becomes a lot more logical, and you start to see better opportunities. But I always start with the stop loss. All right.
Okay.
At what point do I pull the plug if this is not meeting the expectation? Right. I do the same in marketing nonstop. Right. I'm only willing to invest so much in an ad, it either performs or it doesn't. Now,
Right.
I'll be the first one to tell you, sometimes, you know, we stop that loss earlier than we should. That's okay, because it falls into the 80-20 rule, right?
Right.
There's always, I'm only looking to be right 80% of the time, right?
Right.
On that storm, the same thing. I could have been dead wrong, completely wrong about the whole situation. And, you know, it was, you know, it only hit certain, you know, lower level areas. That could have been very much the reality. But I didn't set myself up for complete failure. All right. I set myself up as, we're going to confirm the opportunity. We're going to analyze the size of it. We're going to make sure that the company has the time, resources, and energy and that it's going to put the company in a better position than it is now. Because stopping profitable work to do non-profitable work, like there's a whole bunch of
Right.
factors.
Right.
So I gave myself exactly, and you'll remember it. I gave myself exactly 5 days, 8 hours. So within that time frame, I actually did it in 3. We got boots on the ground. We've, successfully landed a whole bunch more contracts, and it's worked out very, very well for us. We were the first on the ground, so we have our lawn signs up and our trucks in the area. So I mean, from that perspective, it's been somewhat successful. But
Yeah.
again, what are you willing to go in on? Because I could have gone the other way, with my time, over committed on that side, right? And then had other commitments fall down on this side, right?
Well,
So I wasn't prepared for that, because that loss would be substantially higher, when chasing something that's not necessarily going to bring me the results I'm looking for.
well, and I'm going to point a couple of things out, Jay. Number one, um, you didn't have to like, you didn't have to call every shot,
Nope.
right?
No.
Because you have someone calling, there's a general manager essentially calling those shots for you. You
Right.
also did not have to go out and sell the work yourself.
Nope.
You have people doing that,
Right.
right? You
But I
also
had
didn't
to
have to
make
pull all the customers.
I
Sorry, go
had to
ahead.
lead the team. So we deviated from our normal plan of action. So in the company, we're direction bound, right? We're focused on metal roofing. That's where the whole company, when you change the direction or plan of your company, you better be prepared to lead your team through that change.
But it was only possible
Mhm.
because you have command of your day.
Absolutely.
If you did
100%.
not have command of your day, if you were, so let's just say, I mean, I realize it's a different reality, but in a world where you're not running on your other company, right, and
Mhm.
growing your other company, um, if you are, again, like so many other folks, and like the guy that I used to work with, and you're out and you're like in the truck and you're selling work and you're on the job, you're looking, you're walking the job sites and you're running the projects
Mhm.
and you're doing the payment apps and you're talking about the change orders and all the stuff that, we do as operators. I mean, well, one, I'm going to just say the results probably wouldn't have been the same, right? You probably would have spent more,
Mhm.
and you probably would not have gotten the same a number of jobs. And I think, didn't you had customers you'd already replaced their roofs, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there were so many things that came together.
Mhm.
I mean, just
But again, in terms of, you also got to remember the risk, and I got to stress this. Every owner, and if you're in construction, if you believe that your job is to manage jobs and manage this, that you're lying to yourself. Ultimately, the
why are
way
you
I
lying to
view
yourself?
myself as an big
Yes,
difference, okay?
yeah,
Not, not a roofer, not a marketing
not an
sales company, but like
operator, right?
as a responsible owner,
Right.
is that I'm a risk manager. Okay.
Mm,
My job is to manage risk. All right. It is a very big risk. All right. Changing the direction or the intent of your company. You can
right.
destroy a lot of things by
Right.
not having a clear plan in place and not having the ability to lead your team in a situation like that. It could have gone the opposite way, where I
Right.
reallocate resources, including my time,
And
right?
it's gone.
And it got us nowhere. Or, right, again, just in a simple scenario, and we can apply this to anybody's situation. I could have thought that this, in my mind, used my emotions to get really excited, because I did. All right.
Right.
But
Of
there was a
course you
point
did.
where I was like, whoa, let's put this in a box. Okay. Because I want to go out and get it all. I want to do it all. I want it all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's still in me. All right.
Right.
I'm a go-getter, right?
Right.
But that doesn't serve me. Why isn't it doesn't serve me? Because there's other things at stake here, right? Changing direction, changing
Right.
momentum, and not knowing, what will take, or what the value will be, and just taking a huge risk, all right, is negligent on my behalf as an owner, and it costs you all the time. And I want you guys to all think about this. Like, how often does that happen to
Well,
you guys in your
yeah.
own life,
Right.
where you make an emotional reaction if something happens? If you stood slow down enough to start questioning, like, hey, why did I just run out to that owner's job site when obviously it was bullshit, and I could have managed that off the phone, right? Like,
Right.
why did I do that? Like, if you start to question those things, and you start to really look at moving everything that you're putting your time against, you're going to start to see the big gaps. All right. And like I said, if you truly want to grow a business, if you want to truly find success, if you want to find balance in your life, if you want to be able to be data driven, non-emotional, non-reactive, like call your shots, all right, and have control of your life and your business, this is the first step, right? Get control of your time,
Own your
because
time. Yeah.
and use your time only for things that bring value. Okay. Is it bringing you value, all right, to deal with, shitty customers? Probably you shouldn't have dealt with them in the first place,
Right.
right?
Right.
Is it bringing you value to drive around material to your guys? Is it bringing you value to change the direction of your company? Is it bringing you value to, micromanage the people you have? Like, is those things serving you? And you would
Right.
know by how much time you put into them. So again, when you start to look at your time, it's very much the same pattern you follow in building out marketing, building out operations, building, like, if you don't have that original control, all right, and I say control like as if we're testing, your time is what you use as the control.
Well, and it's also, Jay, I think, if you ask, I don't know, if you ask 10 business owners, 10 contractors, what's more important, time or money? I think majority are going to, 8 out of 10 are going to say time. Few are going to say money.
Sure.
But I don't know that that's reflected in what we do. Right.
Right.
Because we don't treat our time like it's the most valuable thing we have. Right?
No, we react because we have a thought in our head that tells us that, hey, I have to deal with customers face to face. I have to do this. I have to do that, or the business will fail. All of us have that in the back of our head. And I mean, I do to this day.
Right.
The way I stop it, okay, because my knee-jerk reactions have not changed. The things like I immediately think in my head, they really haven't changed. The nervousness, the reactive to like an opportunity, like my physiological like reactions have not changed. I'm working on it, but like it still impacts me. Like I was up all night excited, like rolling around thinking of all the great things I was doing.
Sure.
Where the difference has come is that I now again have to take an evaluation and manage and look at the risk, and all of a sudden that opportunity starts to change. It's my view of that opportunity changes. All right. I'm willing to only do this to get back this. Right. And when you start to get to that point, that's when you really, nothing gets past you in terms of opportunity. I mean, in the 80-20 rule, of course, like, I've missed like glaring opportunities, like amazing opportunities. I've, let employees go that I shouldn't have. Like, I still make mistakes. But again, on average, 80% of the decisions, and how many of you guys, when you really look at your day-to-day, life, your operation, your goals, your targets, how many of you can say that, right? That you're in the zone 80% of the time? Because if you can, listen, that like that's where we start to see success form, right? And you can do this again, like I said, just starting out, keep it simple, keep it basic, understand your time first, start to allocate your time towards the things that matter, and then repeat the process. Okay. Again, if I'm going to take a loss, I'm going to take a micro loss, not a massive loss, right? I'm going to isolate the things I'm testing. So for example, the first 5 days, I had a number of contracts and a number of contingencies I needed to sign in order for me to continue doing the ads, I needed to see numbers hit where I wanted them to be. All right. If they're not there, then I begin to question, okay, is it this, or is this worth it? Right. And at a certain point, the clock for me is ticking, and I hold myself accountable to that. Is okay. If I had reached $20,000 investment and hadn't had signed contracts within the first 5 days, which, amounted to about 300,000 in revenue, I would have stopped, because those are the same numbers I'm getting now, and I don't have to divert my team's attention. Right. So again, that's an example of, being able to use the data and analyzing the data. So that was an important thing I just said, right? Not just data. Okay. Data can be confusing, but it's how you take the time, even if you don't like it. I don't like doing it. It's not my favorite thing to do. It's something I get pleasure from. All right. It's a pain in the ass. And if it could delegate it, totally I would. But I do make time to look at those numbers and to look at that data and that information, because it's the thing I know is going to drive the final decision. All right. So now it's not all the pressure on me as a person in my gut, which again, we all, we can make gut decisions as, for about as long as we don't have something distracting us emotionally, right? Then those
Right.
decisions get thrown out of whack and we're making
Right.
bad decisions, right? So
Right.
again, this is where data saves your ass, because it allows you not to be blinded by your emotions, right? And that happens so often to every contractor. And again, it's something that's preventable, and it's something that you need to practice daily. And if you're going to start at the very lowest level of this, I mean, I've told you where to start. If you want to be an owner, if you want to wear that title, you better get good at analyzing your data, right? If you're not there today, cool. All right. What can you do today to get you more into this mindset and start to see immediate results and immediate benefit from this?
Well, and here's what I would say, just to piggyback on that, Jay. So, for the, so we're we can make that available, your time playbook. So, okay, so we're gonna share
it's in our
that.
Facebook group.
Okay, so it's in the group. It's out there already. So grab it, and anybody who sees this outside of the group, just send comment or send a message, and we'll get it to you. But here's the here's where I think here's a simple hack from me to to everybody else, because so then it's like, okay, so if you do it and you see that, I'm spending a lot of time as a courier, running materials, and which is what we've all done. So then so for everyone's got, regardless of whether you're on the tools or you're selling work or you're really managing a team, like you have a skill, right? And so you have to ask yourself, like, so this is the math I did. So I looked at, okay, so the value I can bring right now is X. So I think, I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was like, I don't know, let's say $500,000 in gross profit. So I looked at that and I thought, okay, if I can get this amount of time back, right, and I'm not doing these other things, I could probably triple that.
Yep,
right?
absolutely. Bingo.
And then that's how I used that, because I did this time exercise we're talking about in 2017. And I went from having really spotty jobs to, I was selling, the company hadn't even done $2 million. And then I was just myself doing 2.5 to 3 a year in sales. And I was running 70% gross profits on those, which was, anybody in this work knows those are like unicorn numbers. I'm not bragging, but like I took a lot of work to get there, but it started for me with this time, because I was like, okay, I can get these numbers. I could do more of this if I have more time to do it. Right. And I can focus on it.
So
that's
the
reality.
The other, point that I'll put to it is, how many people on this that are probably listening to this enjoy change? Is change fun?
None of us.
Like, do we adapt well to change?
It's not in our humanity.
Like, is that why maybe I hear day in and day out, like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do.
Right.
I'm stuck at this number. I'm stuck at that. Well, I always kind of bring it back to this very easy way to understand how, and people ask me too, like, how could you just jump in, like, start a new business and like take on all these? It looks very risky, doesn't it? Yeah. Right. It looks like I've taken on things essentially, and there is a lot of risk.
There's risk.
Okay? Yeah. But I'll tell you the difference between me and I would say most contractors, and not to put a divide, is that I've suffered so many devastating defeats that I got used to resenting failure. Right. And over time, when you take that kind of, those kind of things, you really get personal with yourself, especially if you're competitive, and you start to realize, like, yes, I learned some things, but like, how do I prevent this? Because I don't like that feeling. I don't like that. I don't like being stuck. I don't like struggling. I don't like I don't necessarily enjoy any of that stuff. Right. The difference between Jay a decade ago and Jay now all right, is a lot of it's preventable, right? A lot of it is in front of your
Right.
face. If you're watching
Right.
and you're paying attention to it, how often do we have the ability to pay attention to it? How many times are we making, I tracked for, probably a month solid of how many reactive decisions I made. And I just asked
Okay.
myself, what
Yeah.
information do
Wow.
you have that validates this decision? And it changed my life. It changed my life.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
and that's where my phrase comes, in God I trust, everyone else bring data, because I began to only trust the numbers. And lo and
Right.
behold, like all of a sudden, those, those problem staff, those problem, clients, they were disqualified because the numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah.
I started to trust more of those facts I know are correct, and I don't trust my own decisions. I don't,
Right.
right? My own gut decision, I'd be the first to tell you, like, that's not how I got here. All right. I didn't get here because of
Right.
my creativeness. I didn't
Right.
get here because of my outgoingness or my ability to build client base. I didn't get here for any of those reasons. I got here simply because I know the risk reward, and I know my job is to manage the risk and only take calculated risks that I can
Right.
measure. And it's
Right.
just been one little step. It's been testing little things. Yeah, they fail, but they fail often, they fail quick. And I get
Right.
them away from the business. I rather, and again, if you start to adapt to that, but again, you've got to be able to, you know, take in a different approach for sure. Most of us were running our business from our gut. I did it for a decade. I know what
Yeah.
that feeling's like, and you can get
Yeah.
some level of success. You can get a
Sure.
lot.
It's
You can be
also
very
expensive.
busy. You
Yeah.
can get
Right.
yourself very busy. You can make a lot of promises to people. Like, you
Yeah.
can do a lot to, make it create your rake. And I say rake because it's all going to come back to you at one point. The
Right.
only way that you delegate with confidence, okay, the only way you make decisions with confidence, big difference here, okay, is that you have to start with with the control, like what is
Right.
working, right? I want to try this, and I'm going to use the control to base off the, the decision I want to make. And again, it just comes back, and it's a habit. It's is really where I'm trying to get to. We don't, I didn't have this habit. I had to earn it and learn it. You guys out there now, if you're listening to me, like, and you understand what I'm saying, I mean, once you start to build that habit and start to question those decisions and only make your strong decisions off your data, you're going to see your life change. You're going to see everything that you thought was impossible, or you thought that, was way out of your range, even your view of yourself. And it's not
Well,
hard, right? Like, if
and
somebody tells you, you've got an, 1 out of 10 chance of hitting this target, is that target so relevant now? No.
right.
Well, who's telling you that?
Well, and I think too, Jay, again, you are, we talk, I mean, I talk about you a lot, but I also think that, and that was really that was what drew me to you like 3 years ago when we got
Mhm.
together, was that, like, I was like, here's a guy that is, like, doing what he is telling other people they should be doing,
100%.
right? And, and so for those, anybody out there that's like, well, I don't want, I don't want to start another business. We're not saying that.
Nope.
Here's what I'm going to point out is that you get to do what you want to do,
Yes.
right? So you love marketing,
Mhm.
right? So you get to spend your time on Jay Carter Roofing on the marketing. And so you spend a little bit of time every week there. And
Yep.
then now you're building a new business that is doing a lot of work around marketing. And so,
Absolutely.
I mean, personally for me, I think one of the things that I found and that I fell in love with in contracting was I loved that I loved being outside. I loved being on job sites. I loved driving. I loved windshield time and going to look at these jobs. And I just, there's such a feeling of freedom, like being in the open air. And I absolutely loved that. And the thing that I love about being a business owner, entrepreneur today is like that on steroids, right?
Mhm.
And so I think I want to believe that there's a lot of people out there, men and women, that they, are doing a lot of stuff that they don't really want to do or aren't good
Mhm.
at. And, what we're saying is that, it's not easy to get there. However, like
It's not easy, but
there
it's
is a
simple.
path. What's that? That's right.
It's
It's not
not
easy, but it's
easy, but it's
simple.
simple.
But it starts with, where do I spend my time? My most
That's right.
valuable asset, the most valuable thing I have right now,
Mhm.
where am I spending that? And then where can I invest that? And so that's the first step towards getting to do more of what you want to do, whether it's
Uh,
in your business or
you
anywhere
you
else.
can't do any of the things I just talked about, like without taking like stupid risk. Like, may as well
Right.
go put it all on red at the casino. All
Right.
right, because I mean, there is cases where people have just totally ignored all these rules and have been successful, but it's rare,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Very,
Those are
very
right.
rare.
Not the
So,
majority. Right.
and again, the people that generally end up being successful are ones that, it's like there's a classic behavior pattern to them, is that they understand the value of their time, right? They practice their zone of genius. They keep in their zone of genius. They delegate things they don't want to do that take their energy, right? They delegate those things away. Well, listen, you just described, I just described rather perfectly what data analysts is and what we do in marketing. It's controlled tests. Hey, I like
Right.
that. I don't like that. I like that. I don't like that. Like,
Right.
that's, you mean, again, you can apply this very simply, and your first victory will be very quick. Like, very quick. Like, if you were to make, a 5-day commitment to this and just go and, write down everything you did, just keep it in a notepad and then come back and categorize that as valuable, or what level of value that task is, you're going to see, hey, I'm spending like most people are when they do this the first time, and not that I haven't seen hundreds of guys do it and go, oh shit. All right.
Right.
Is that you're doing, the 80% of your time is spent doing the things that bring you 20% of the result. Right. That's what the aha moment is, going, well, if I just shifted a little bit, said no to those 20% things that are,
Right.
just taking up room and energy, I
Right.
would have so much more bandwidth to focus on the things that actually are bringing the results to me, to my life, to my business, to, anywhere you apply. But you're not going to be able to see that until you stop. And again, you collect the data. The data is, your behavior. And if you think you can remember it over a course of it, you can't. Like, it evaporates, it's gone, right? It's only when
Right.
you record it, when
Right.
you look at it, and again, you analyze it, that you start to make decisions based on that data that improve your life, right? And if you get that and you get really good at it, guess what else you can start to apply it to? Like, it goes up and up and up from there, because
Right.
it's
It's a
it's the
beautiful
same
rabbit
core
hole.
principle, right?
Right.
You start asking the right questions as well, right? Like, what is the time required for this? How do we know this for sure? Because the bigger your business gets, the more you're concerned with the risk that comes. It's not about making money. I'm going to make money no matter what. But what's that money? What is the money? What kind of risk am I taking on for that money? Is it
Right.
worth it? Right. And I'm always asking myself, and that's, again, it forces you to really look hard at the decisions, right? Like, is this helping the company or hurting it? You know, again, when I look at my risk, and I analyze risk with both these businesses regularly. I think I've gone
Right.
through that system with you. And, like, again, there's a meter. If it hits a certain thing, I have a stop loss. That's it.
Right.
Right. I
Right.
don't question it, because I've questioned it before and seen the disaster that causes. So I don't have to question it. And again, if you start to really put it all together, where it came from first my time.
And the net, again, I want to point out, the net is that today you run a business, you started and run a business you want. You
Mhm.
also oversee and get to do what you enjoy in your roofing business, and you get to do more of the things that you enjoy as a human, right?
Mhm.
So like that's I think what we all want, but aren't doing the things that are going to get us there,
Right.
right?
And we're talking about, like, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah, one bite
One
at a
bite at
time.
a time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, okay, think about this as being a marathon. It's never going to stop, right? We're running a marathon. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think you have to have all these things. I didn't get there from just being having all this knowledge. I didn't get I got here through trial and error, you know,
Right.
and
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
part of the message and value I want to bring to contractors is I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm never the
No,
smartest guy in the room,
neither am I.
right?
100%.
But the few things that I kept as a part of my discipline have gotten me to where I am, and they protect me from the things that come with running a business, having a family, like all of these things is a giant balancing act, right?
Right.
And if you are incapable of balancing your time, where do you think that shows up? In
Right.
everything you love, all the things
Right.
you're building, all the work you're putting in, that's where you're going to see the effect. If you're not happy with your results, well, look at yourself first,
Yeah.
right? Are you
Right.
the example? Like, would you attract an A player that knew how to, you know, do things like I would? No, hell no. If
Right.
you don't have to, like, if
No.
you missed your appointments with me, like, forget it, right? Like, so again, and by the way, when we sign up clients for, you know, or for Contractor AI and the other things that we offer, what do you think I look at first? What do you think is most valuable for me in seeing if you're an A client that I want to do business with, right?
Probably people
Because
that do the
again, I
work.
still say no more than I say yes.
Right.
And the
Right.
reason I'm looking for is this person capable of managing
Right.
their time?
Oh
Would
yeah.
they
Right.
be okay being uncomfortable for a while for huge gains? Because like I've pointed out a million times, we've brought in massive wins on paper for clients, and you know, they're not in a position yet to receive it, and they feel that they've lost,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's simply because they don't understand that element of things, right? They don't get that, they don't slow down enough, they don't pay attention. And again, you know, really, why you always got to ask the question of why, right? Why don't they have time? What are they
Right.
doing that's like, what are they doing that's so valuable
Yeah.
right now? And it better be, you know, $10,000-15,000 tasks, because what I just brought to you just made you 30 grand or 40 grand or
Right.
$1 million,
Right.
and you're too busy to keep it and implement it,
Right.
right? Don't be busy.
Right. Yeah. Get shit done. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So we have in the group are the what's it called, Jay? The time, what is it?
Yeah, it's our time guide. So you get that
Our
as a,
time guide.
yeah, as soon as you join the free Facebook group, we give that to you right away. Again, like I said, my value is how you manage your time. So again, if we were to engage or do anything, I want to make sure that you've got a good grip on your time so you can, you know, get results.
And I was going to say, and so for the doers out there, the achievers that grab it and actually want to fucking do it, like they can come Thursday. You can
Yep.
come and show up at Thursday in School with Jay, SKOOL, and bring your time guide. And you know, Jay, you know, this is what we live for, right? This is what we
Yep.
want to, you know, this
It's
is
where I
why
get
we're
the
here.
biggest results.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, again, time is it's such a big domino. Like it's so like you get this one thing right, it impacts so much other stuff. So,
You get rid of the stuff that's holding you back, and we start adding
right,
the things that are going to take you forward, right?
right, right. So, so look for that. If you can't find it, again, send a message to us or drop a comment on this live on this post, and you know one of our team will make sure that we get that to you. And again, if you want help with it or insights on how to use it, right? Because this obviously we can't get into all that today, you know, in an hour. Show up, you know, come out on Thursday 3 o'clock for school, and you know, and we can give you some help on that. So, all right. Thanks everybody for being with us. We are here every Thursday, 3 o'clock.
Friday. Or
Sorry,
here every Friday.
every Friday. I said Thursday like 6 times. Every Friday, 3 o'clock, Jay and I are live, bringing solutions, bringing some of the plays that helped us both to generate millions of dollars in net profit, get our lives back, get our time back. So we're here to serve you, and look forward to seeing you again next week.
Bye.